In this video interview with Rachel Olsen-Cooper, we discuss her background and knowledge in video game history and preservation as a video game journalist, talk about the effect of DMCA laws on media, and then we do some philosophical thinking about the role that journalists can play in the overall fight to preserve video game history. Rachel Olsen-Cooper is a former Full Sail University graduate who primarily works in esports in the DFW area of Texas. As a fellow video game journalist, I thought it would be interesting to hear her perspective on a relatively niche topic like this. Rachel and I both have also previously worked for GameStop, and we have a mutual love of esports and the communities that surround them. Now let's dive in. So, since my stuff is mostly based, or my capstone is on video game preservation, you work on like the esports side, but you do like to do like that investigative journalism kind of stuff. So I'm sure that like you've heard kind of about, I guess, the issues within the video game industry when it comes to, like that live service gaming and like the physical versus digital, I guess, war. So if we're going to
Yeah.
do like console wars, because that's like the popular thing, it's like the digital versus physical war. Um,
Yeah.
I am going to start using that all the time because that's what I call it, and people always give me that reaction. But I guess from your perspective, you've been in the industry a while. You've kind of seen all the sides. What do you specifically think needs to change on the industry side to allow for like true preservation efforts to flourish? And if you need like examples of that or have any questions, I can answer those too.
I mean, really, I think that some of it comes down to. So I don't want to say that companies are afraid to make physical anymore. I don't think that that's the case. I think that companies don't have the money to make physical anymore.
Okay.
Um, and I think I kind of feel like I hate to keep blaming things on the pandemic, but I really do think that it comes down to the pandemic and what we saw in that shift,
Mm-hmm.
from the physical to the digital. Um, but also think that there's enough people out there that do still love to have those physical copies of games that companies will still at least find a way to even just make a small amount,
Mm-hmm.
because there are still people that want to have those physical copies. What I would like to see from the industry when making the physical copies is just put it all on the same disc. Why do we need to download the game
Yes.
with that copy of the disc? Why can't we just have it on there? Like, even if you have to give us 2 or 3 discs, look at the PlayStation 1.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to use Final Fantasy 7 as the perfect example that game in itself had 4 CDs,
Mm-hmm.
and we were perfectly fine with changing those CDs out. People are still willing to do that because now there's going to be three more CDs of Final Fantasy 7 in the rebirth stuff. So people still want to have that physical being, but I think that companies are starting to shy away because they're seeing all these live service games and seeing how well the digital is doing, and they're like, well, if we can cut this cost on these millions of physical games that we're going to make and maybe only make a couple thousand or 100,000, whatever it is, and spend more time on the digital, it's going to save us money. And so, like, I would like to see that especially the bigger companies, because indie companies, it's hard
Mm-hmm.
because it is so expensive to put your stuff onto a physical being. Um, we need to make up for that in the AAA industry, and even in the AA industry. That they really do still need to be making these physical copies because digital is not forever. And one of the things that we used to tell people at GameStop, who are coming in to buy, these games, and they would just say, oh, I just want the digital copy. That isn't your copy of the game. At any point in time, that studio can decide that they don't want you to play their game anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And if they do that and you have a digital copy, it's gone. You're not getting it back.
Right.
And if you own the physical copy of the game, yeah, you may not get updates anymore, but you can at least still play the game.
Right.
Like, if I wanted to, I could pop Destiny 1 into my PS4 right now and still play it
Mm-hmm.
because I have a physical copy of the game. but if anybody just downloaded it as digital, sorry, can't ever go back and play that game anymore, even if you wanted to.
Right.
So it's or Overwatch. It was another. I have somewhere a physical copy of Overwatch for the PC. I can't use it because I don't have a disk drive. Well, I
Mhm.
technically do, like I have an external one, but I can't use it. But I still have it
Mhm.
just because I can.
Right.
you know, I don't have that option with Overwatch 2. They never even made a like even just a case
Right.
for Overwatch 2. Like it's just all just a general download. So,
Mhm.
you know, if if I wanted to go back and play Overwatch 1 with that physical copy of the game, I could because the physical being of it is still on that CD.
Mhm.
Um so I think that the AA and AAA studios need to at least lean back into physical copies, um, especially as we see more and more that these digital, versions of games are becoming unplayable,
Mhm.
and that sucks
Yeah.
because there's just
So, DMCA laws, I mean, I'm sure you're familiar with them, you're a journalist. So DMCA laws are a big part of why like I guess true video game preservation is so difficult. How do you think that like in your opinion, what do you think DMCA laws do for the video game industry? How does it affect the industry as a whole?
DMCA is hard because I understand needing to have like that digital copyright out there and whatnot, like needing to be able to own your title and your assets and whatnot.
Mhm.
Um, but at the same time, like we're in an age that so many things are available to people that they can use freely, and it just I hate hearing about people having like that, like if they're playing a game on Twitch and they have to mute their volume because they might get DMCA striked because of a song that's in the game that they're playing. Like it's such a fickle thing when it comes to the DMCA stuff, and I feel like that owning physical copies of the game can sometimes help that, but it's such a complicated issue that to kind of get around. And as time goes on and people start to try to redistribute copies of things. I mean, the elephant in the room of, people getting ROMs,
Yep.
online.
Mhm.
It happens.
Oh yeah.
Um, I'm Nintendo ROMs, like, I'm pretty sure that over time, just about any millennial has probably had a ROM on their PC at some point.
Absolutely.
Um, but it just like if somebody just wants to play that old game, they have to worry about whether or not they're going to get in trouble for playing that old game because they might be getting a copy that somebody owned that they decided to redistribute. Like it's just it's such a really kind of fickle thing
Mhm.
that I hate that if I own a game, I should be able to do with it what I want to.
Right.
Like if I own the physical copy of the game, I should be able to do whatever it is that I want to with it. And they don't see it that way.
Right.
Well, I paid money for the physical copy of the game. Why am I being told that I can't allow somebody else to play it?
Right.
Yeah. So again, I understand copyright. I get it, but I feel like in some way it has the potential of not even the potential that it does cause a lot of issues, especially for like, just people that just want to share
Right.
the game or being able to broadcast the game.
Mhm.
And I feel like they need to kind of like rethink about how they're giving these strikes and fines and everything like that to people, because whether they like it or not, streaming is a thing and it's never going away.
Right.
People should be able to share what it is that they physically bought the way that they want to, whether it's streaming or if they want to load that into a ROM and just share it with one person, kind of thing. They should, if you physically own the game, you should be able to do with what you want to. Digital copy is different because, again, you don't own that game. The publisher does. So you're leasing, the game with the digital copy. So
Right.
that's a completely different story. But physical copy of the game, I should be able to do whatever I want to with it. It's people that just want to go back and just play an old game, but they may not be able to if they only had the digital copy of it.
How do you think journalists can help make meaningful change for video game preservation? I guess to kind of give an example, like journalism
Yeah.
has always been forefront for like reporting on things like issues that need change, right?
Mhm.
So we don't consider video game preservation like a thing, but there was a study done by the Video Game History Foundation that 83% of video game history is considered endangered. Less than
Mhm.
20% of current generation titles across all systems, all genres, is not represented in a physical way, and it could be considered like lost at any time. Live service
Yeah.
gaming is taking over the industry. When you are purchasing a digital game, you're not purchasing it, like you said, you're leasing it, so they
Right.
could take it away from you at any time. Like the Stop Killing Games movement that happened in the UK earlier this year,
Yeah.
things like that. That was like a grassroots movement, but it got a lot of traction with video game journalists who were putting it out over here. So it got a lot of traction over
Yeah.
here, and so now people are like, and so they're thinking about like those DMCA laws and how that stuff works. Like, are we doing enough? Are we doing our due diligence? Are we
Yeah.
respecting video gaming enough as like the cultural like powerhouse that it is, like as journalists, like to use our voices to kind of like do what we need to do for that, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I remember hearing about the Stop Killing Games movement, like bits and pieces of it though.
Right.
Um, so really that's where I think that we need to come in with our given First Amendment rights
Yeah.
to be able to spread that awareness of what's going on, because I don't want to say that gaming journalism has like such an effect on the video game industry to the point where it's going to create major change.
Mm-hmm.
But I do believe that video game journalism can help create some change. That, you know, reviews and whatnot that are put out by the video game industry, and specific journalists that, are reviewing games and whatnot. Um, while gaming studios are, yes, they're looking at, the core gamers and what it is that they think. At
Mm-hmm.
the same time, if the journalists are putting them on blast, they might make some changes, because those journalists putting them on blast can also make the gamers themselves put them on blast, depending on, what it is it's kind of being discussed, and
Right.
and
Right.
like what the issue is.
Mm-hmm.
And so those journalists bringing that to light can make major changes in the industry. And while this isn't necessarily video games, let's just talk about Sonic the Hedgehog
Yeah.
in the movie, and the whole movement, and it being covered so much by journalists that
Mm-hmm.
the movie studio was like, maybe we should probably rethink this Sonic the Hedgehog thing. So it journalists can definitely make changes, but I think that we also need the help from the gamers.
Right.
That if the gamers really do want to make it so that, that there are more physical copies of games, so that we're preserving this history. I didn't realize that we had the potential of losing that much of our video game history.
Right.
Um, and I mean, we're talking what, 40 something years worth of video games
Almost
that,
70.
yeah, I mean, if you go far back enough into
Mm-hmm.
like the early days of it. So I mean,
Yeah.
that's not having, I should be able to walk into a store and buy a physical copy of any game that's on the market, any AAA game that's on the market right now. And the fact that I can't is a shame. If I want to have a physical, we'll go back to Overwatch. If I want to have a physical copy of free Overwatch, pay, $10 or $20 or whatever it is, just to be able to own a physical copy of it. I want to be able to do that. Um, I'm trying to think of another game that I have that would kind of fit that mold a little bit better. Trying to think of games that didn't have a whole lot of a physical being. I mean, really, just even a lot of the sports titles
Mm-hmm.
really haven't been doing a whole lot in the physical realm, unless it's a big collector's edition because you're getting a hat or you're getting gloves or cards or whatever it is.
Right.
Um, if I just want to have a physical copy of Madden, I mean, I know that they make them and that may not be the best example, but I should just be able to walk into a store and buy a physical copy
Mm-hmm.
and not have to just worry about downloading the digital copy. Um, I think that a lot of that has also changed with the major emergence of PC.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the PC industry has, and the lack of CD drives, has made a major difference
Yes.
in the way of the physical presentations of video games, because it's so much easier just to throw your game up on Steam than it is to make a physical copy of it.
Right.
Um, so as journalists, I think that bringing awareness to it, and I mean, and in some ways, it might even have to be grassroots, even at this level in the United States, to have more people see that we're losing history because these gaming companies don't want to make physical copies of games anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I really think that as journalists, we need to make sure that if there is even the smallest voices, we need to be amplifying them,
Right.
because that's our whole point.
Mm-hmm.
That we're the unbiased um, people that are supposed to help raise the voices of the general public.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean that's probably the biggest thing is for journalists, is just to help bring awareness to it. And if there's movements, if there's um, even if it's like people talking at a convention about it, just making sure that those types of things are being amplified. Make your videos, make your podcasts, do your writing, do whatever it is that, to try to help amplify those voices, because we have the power to do that
Mm-hmm.
as journalists, where the general public doesn't.
Right. Okay. Do you have anything else that you'd like to add or add comments on before we wrap up?
um Something I think about too is, I think a lot of what's lost as far as like video game preservation goes is really just the losing the physical publications of
Mm-hmm.
gaming journalism. Losing Game Informer, I think, was one of the biggest hits on the video game journalism industry,
Yes.
because that was the way that this kind of stuff was getting to more than just people online.
Mm-hmm.
And um and it was I was heartbroken when I saw that Game Informer wasn't going to be around anymore, or that it was going to be a very small, entity in comparison to what it was, because I mean Game Informer has been around since I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Even going back to Nintendo Power, this is me showing my age, having copies of Nintendo Power. That was how I got my gaming news,
Mm-hmm.
was from that, you know? So I think that that's like another way that as journalists, that we're, I don't want to say that we're not helping, but where some of our voices are getting lost
Mm-hmm.
in the way of video game preservation, is not having those major publications to amplify those voices, because there's so many different websites out there now um, that can write about things, but kind of going back to, we're writing the small pieces of news to just get the information out there, rather than going into these, bigger investigative reporting pieces that are covering things like this. So I think that not having those bigger publications like Game Informer are hurting the video game preservation.
Okay. Cool. Thank you. I really appreciate your time. And
Yeah.
for letting me record you for I think an hour and 15 minutes. So, that was fantastic. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Um,
No, you're welcome. You're welcome.
I'm super appreciative.
I I know that this is just going to get harder.
If you made it this far, thank you so much for your support. I also want to thank Rachel for her time with me for this interview and for all the advice that she gave me about Full Sail. Rachel can be found on Twitter at the handle at @the_spawn_room, where she covers esports news and posts her photography of related events. You can follow me, Sinuous Sheriff, on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook with the handle at SenSheriffDFW to keep up with and read my work. My project Leveling Up History is well worth your read. Thanks again, and I hope to level up with you again in the future.